President Levy, fellow Rotarians and guests, it is my distinct privilege to be before you today and share the story of your children's museum, Knock Knock Children's Museum. Last night when I was sitting at home working on my remarks, I don't know, it might have been the rain made me a little nostalgic, but I was thinking back, trying to remember the first encounter I had with Knock Knock, and it actually was about this time last year. And from that very first contact with the Knock Knock folks, with the recruitment committee, it became clearer and clearer to me a very, very distinct vision that the founders were putting forward for Knock Knock Children's Museum. It really was about creating a sense of place, a new sense of place. It was about creating access to play for all children in the capital region, regardless of background, of life situation. And that vision was also about, look, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it really well. We're going to knock it out of the park. And I wasn't in any position to be leaving what I was doing. I was totally happy. But I was hooked. They really hooked me. And now we're coming on a year of first meeting them, and that vision is more apparent than ever. And I'm just thrilled to share it with you today. I'm going to be taking you through really three broad sections. We're going to be talking about play, about early development, and then a sneak peek into Knock Knock. So I'm a director of a hands-on children's museum, an interactive museum, so I like to make my talks participatory. You'll have to forgive me, but I'm going to ask you to do something. I want you to think back to your childhood. I want you to go way back to your childhood and find your favorite play memory. We all have them. So go way back in your memory, think through, go way back in the brainstem there and pull up a play memory. Just run it through in your brain, think through what you're doing, who you're with, where were you. I know for me, my play memories all come from rural Minnesota, west central Minnesota, Otter Tail County. We have more lakes than any county in the country. I grew up on a dairy farm, so fairly isolated, and many of my play memories involved my 3 older brothers, cousins, the occasional neighbor. I remember we had a grove of pine trees out behind the barn, and the pine trees there, if you don't trim them, they form a canopy down to the ground, and under them it's like this perfect little enclosure. It's like its own world underneath each little pine tree, with find rabbits' nests under there. You can hide and surprise your brothers. Forts, we built forts endlessly finding scrap materials in trees, on the ground, you name it. We had a big hay mow in the top of our dairy barn, where you keep your hay, your straw, your alfalfa. Back then you had rectangular bales, which were perfect, like big blocks to build forts with, to really be able to make these tunnels. Could spend hours up in that hay mow. It goes on and on, lots of play memories. And I would think that my play memories might be similar to yours in that they don't involve a lot of adults, a lot of grown-ups, very self-directed. And when I think back on those play memories, they're so enjoyable to think about. There's just something that's so intrinsic about play. And that's because play is the real work of childhood. All of this up here, all that structure, we know comes from play. It's where we learn to set boundaries, where we can test limits, where we learn to collaborate, communicate, critical thinking, try something, it doesn't work, try something else. Play is the thing. And I don't know if all of you were at last week's Rotary. I was front and center to hear Dr. Gordon's talk on early childhood and the critical importance of investment in early childhood. And I got to tell you, I've heard a lot of talks on the subject, and this was by far the most articulate and clear on point on the absolute critical juncture where we are in society, and the value of investing in early childhood. And really, that's what Knock Knock is all about. It's about understanding how the brain develops, knowing that it is the best return on investment that society can see. If 90% of the brain is formed before the age of 5, and the vast majority of funding doesn't start in education until 5, we have such an opportunity to invest in early childhood. Knock Knock Children's Museum is a clear example of Baton Rouge pulling together in a very grassroots sort of way to start in addition to a lot of great work happening in the early childhood arena, but to really double down and invest in a significant way in early childhood. And we know this is even more important than ever because children just don't play like they used to. I grew up in the 70s, and it was a lot of free-range childhood. For various reasons nowadays, it doesn't happen as much, but it does at the Children's Museum. It's kind of like that, the Children's Museum is kind of like that vacant lot at the end of the block that you grew up with, or for me, the Grove of Pines behind the barn. It's that safe place to play and to self-direct your own play without instruction. How did Knock Knock come to be, and how is it coming to be? Well, we have some very special people to thank for that. It truly is a grassroots effort that started from the bottom up. Mr. Stevens' wife, Kelly, is one of the founders. She's not able to be here today, but she's still involved and presents a very clear vision on why she has dedicated so much of her life to this endeavor. We do have Cricket Gordon right at the table here, who is also one of the founders. And we have 2 past board chairs with Stacy Dewey and Kelly Harton. Those folks really came together around the kitchen table to pull together a clear vision for a children's museum in Baton Rouge. One of the very early pieces to come together for this group where it really was able to take off was to create a public-private partnership where Knock Knock Children's Museum is a 501c3 and partner with the Recreation and Park Commission for the parish of East Baton Rouge, affectionately known as BREC. And we have Carolyn McKnight up here at the head table, a dear collaborator, and we have our commissioners here at this table who have been incredibly supportive of this project. Also, the Irene W. and C.B. Pennington Foundation came on as an early critical partner. But where things get even more interesting to me is when those founders, along with Breck, decided to place the Children's Museum in City Brooks Park on this beautiful hill overlooking the lake. And all of us who spend time up there think, how come this didn't get developed before? And thank goodness it didn't, because it really is putting children at the center of our community. It's accessible to the freeway and to neighborhoods that are full of young children. Here you can see the layout of the grounds. It's about 6 acres. On one side you have South Baton Rouge, on the other side you have the lakes, and you have all the properties around the lakes at LSU and the Garden District. Knock Knock's intention is really to be a bridge between communities. It's a place where everybody can come together and experience the thrill of playing and learning. Kelly Stevens, one of the stories she likes to share, she was at the Children's Museum in Houston when her daughter was really young. And her daughter was playing with a little child who looked to be of Mexican descent. And Kelly was sitting with with the little boy's abuelita, who didn't speak English. She spoke Spanish. And through the language of play, Kelly and the abuelita had no problem communicating. And she brought that vision back. And that is the inception of Knock Knock Children's Museum. Carolyn has been, the superintendent has been such a strong advocate to literally connect the neighborhoods. There'll be a sidewalk that connects from Dalrymple all the way up to the neighborhood on the other side of the parking lot. We have our architects here with us today. We have Sam and Trula, who have created this incredible design and placed the building in such a way that the back doesn't close off to either neighborhood. The building's position is intentional to welcome everybody. As the founders, now with Breck and the Pennington Foundation, move forward, they did something really incredible to me. They reached out to 30 individuals, families, businesses to become founding members and really built this grassroots effort. They asked each one of them to donate $50,000, and they did. They did. They also, at this time, the founding board pulled together focus groups. They had dialogues with the community. They did the master planning and really articulated this incredible vision. They decided through these community dialogues that Knock Knock really had to be a special place. So they set about to find the best and the brightest to work with. They did a national RFP to find building architects and exhibit designers and settled on C7A. C7A then partnered with Remsen, Haley, and Harpin, our local architects, and with 1220 exhibits out of Nashville. 1220 did the Baseball Hall of Fame at LSU, and also you might be familiar with the Road to Tokyo exhibit at the World War II Museum in New Orleans. They're actually on site right now installing all the learning zones. The board, with these partnerships now, really set about to form Knock Knock's, its bylaws, its structure. They brought on a project manager in Melissa Bell and really built out the project. And if you wouldn't mind indulging me at this moment, could we please all give the founding board, our founding members, and our founding partners a round of applause. Thank you. So then, all of that work is really resulting in where we are today, right? And we're about to announce when we're going to open. We're not there yet, but it's coming. This public-private partnership with Breck has resulted in $13 million raised to date, and that's from the ground up. We still have at least $1 million left to raise. We're going to open, but we really need to raise that remaining capital campaign. It takes a lot to sustain a children's museum, and this final push is critical. We're expecting to have about 40 plus employees, and that is really to serve around 200,000 visitors annually. We may be the busiest children's museum in Louisiana. To start, we will be the biggest. So now I'm going to take you on a little sneak peek walkthrough of the learning zones, of what's going to be inside. It's pretty spectacular. One thing that you won't be seeing are the views from those big beacons, from those pavilion windows, because that's half the show. But I would say that the founding board, under the direction of Kate Harriman, our board vice chair and education chair, has developed these incredible learning zones. There's 18 of them. The first of which that you see when you walk in the building is the story tree. You just have to imagine it. It's this larger than life fanciful tree. And the canopy is drooping with letters and words and little critters. It's just designed to build a love of literacy. And without literacy, nothing else comes. There's books everywhere. You can go inside the tree trunk, look in a periscope, and see magic animation flying around the canopy. There's little mailboxes where you can write as literacy evolves into writing, where you can write notes, put it in the mailbox, see it go through a pneumatic tube, up around this butterfly mobile, and out the other mailbox. And this learning zone is made possible because of the generosity of a Rotarian, our fellow member, Mr. David Bondi and his family, and the Luba Casualty Insurance Company. Right next to the story tree, we have Knock Knock Square. This one is yet to be sponsored. We're still looking for sponsors. This is the first place where you kind of walk in to the gallery, and it's designed to be a gathering space. There's a larger-than-life book on end behind the stage that'll be projected with electronic storybooks where the pages turn digitally. There's a clock tower with 2 animatronic owls that will tell knock-knock jokes on the hour. I imagine they'll be wisecracking. And then we have these, see this the parents seating, you can sit here, watch a show, children get their creative play going. You can flip it over and it's a puzzle of the Louisiana State Seal. The Knock Knock Maker Shop. This is a cool spot. It's made possible by Brookwood Properties. And it's where you tinker, you make stuff, you learn how the world works. Squishy circuits, the science of color, you name it. You've taken apart children's stuffed animals like a Tickle Me Elmo and figuring out how the gears work. This is where we develop the entrepreneurs of tomorrow. Right next door, we have the Art Garden, also made possible because of the Brookwood Foundation. And this is all about creating art, all sorts of media. Parents are going to love it because they don't have to clean up the mess. And we have Lois Rector here, who's the chair of our Art Garden Committee and manages an army of volunteers who have developed the most wonderful programming. You're just going to love it. We have the Go Figure Playhouse. This came together with a sponsorship by the Posterweight and Netterville Partners. And this is truly a remarkable story and why Knock Knock is going to be, have some national notice, I believe. Some of the founding board members, including Stacy Dewey, on their own dime traveled to Frankfurt, Germany, and visited Mathematicum, the Museum of Math. This giant freestanding math museum where there's no paper or pencils. It's all hands-on math. And it's through a partnership we have with LSU, but long story short, they formed a partnership and convinced those Germans to give us the rights to create their components here in Baton Rouge. So we're going to be the only place in North America to have Mathematicum components. Bayou Building. That's sponsored by Performance Contractors, Triad Electric, and Controls, a Neutron Group company. That is the Mississippi Bridge right there. A giant crane, you can lift up big blocks. It's all about building. We have Fishtails. This is sponsored by Dow Chemical Company. You don't see it in this illustration, but there's a beautiful mural of a southern Louisiana estuary all full of critters and wildlife. It's just really gorgeous. Paws and Claws. This is where children learn about nurturing and taking care of animals. We have the Go-Go Garage, which is sponsored in honor of Faye Rogan Lane. Kids can, so much of this is little ones being empowered to take on the role of grown-ups, all the things they see around them all day long but never get to do. Here they get to do it. They're going to be changing the oil, changing tires, filling up the gas. Then we have, sponsored by the Associated Food Stores, the Pelican Pantry. There are 2 cash registers in here that look so much cooler than what's in the illustration. You can actually scan the food and it tallies it, and children have to use their math skills to select the currency to pay for it. There's also an area where you can scan the food and learn where it comes from in Louisiana. If you notice, there's a real theme of culture. When you come into Knock Knock, you're going to know you're in Baton Rouge and you're in Louisiana. The Bubble Playground, sponsored by Albemarle Foundation. This is going to be a sloppy mess. I don't know how we're going to be maintaining this. Melissa Bell, that's yours to figure out. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. BR Star Studio, this is not sponsored yet. Imagine like this black mirrored paneled glass. Children can see their reflection, and it's also projected with local children teaching various dances, a Cajun dance, a country line dance, hip hop, ballet. It's going to be rocking. Ship-Shape Health Challenge. We all know that there's a big obesity issue here in Louisiana with our children. So this is with a partnership of Our Lady of the Lake Children's Hospital to get children moving. It's fun to move. Create all these challenges to get their heart rate up. This is super cool. I know I keep saying this, but this is really cool. All hands on deck, a big push boat. I mean, it feels like a real push boat. And the front window from the inside is actually a monitor. And with footage going down the river between the two bridges, from bridge to bridge, you can go faster, slower. It's got a grizzly sea captain narrating, a river captain narrating. You see that pelican on the back? You crank a recumbent bike really fast. If you get it fast enough, it'll make the wings flap. We have the quiet cabin. So after all this fun, all this excitement, you just need to chill out. There's also a lactation station on the other side for breast milk expression. Okay, one more time. This is probably my favorite. Baby, where can you go with babies in the world? There's very few places designed for them. Well, this exhibit, our largest learning zone, is just for babies 1s and 2s. Everything is designed to get those synapses firing and to be just parent and child, grandparent and child, to be close, create that bond of call and response. You can actually go in this giant crawfish. Eagle's nest, beaver's den, cypress trees, Storybook Climber. This is the only lucky climber in all of Louisiana. Those are books flying open. There's, I can't remember, 30 some of them. Goes up over 40 feet. It's all netted and it's baffled in a way it's impossible to fall. It's going to be in the bottom pavilion closest to Dalrymple. So when you drive by, Spencer Luckey describes his climbers as fountains of children. So you'll be driving by, seeing children climbing up in these seemingly flying books. And just think of that confidence. You're a 4-year-old, maybe you can't make it up 1 or 2 books the first time, the next time a couple more books. Finally, you make it to the top and you're looking out over the park. You can see that live oak down on Dalrymple from the top. That's got to do something for your brain development. We also have the IC Food Cafe, the Welcome Center, and the Huddle Up Team Room. So this wouldn't be nearly enough on its own if we weren't really focused on helping all the children who can't get here to get here. So we do have a Knock Knock for All access fund that is now open, and we're doing things like subsidized memberships for families who can't afford them, affinities nights for children with special needs, a free day, and we're looking for sponsorships for all those sorts of tools to help children get in. One of the coolest things that we've done so far, Kate Harriman was able to get a grant through the BRAF flood recovery to do programming for early childhood centers that were affected by the flood. And think of all those children who experienced trauma from the flood. And we know, it's not like just because they're little, they don't realize what's going on. In fact, it's even harder on them because their brains are growing so fast, they're more susceptible to stress and trauma. So Kate developed these incredible kits to really help those instructors bring their children's stress levels down. We have so many collaborations and partnerships. The founders have just been so welcoming to others to join this team, that LSU and Southern and you name it, there are so many partnerships going on. And it's not just for kids, folks. This is for you too. So we're going to have, it's a rental facility. You can rent it out. At my last museum, in the first 6 months, we had 2 weddings and 2 funerals. So there's going to be grown-up nights. There's professional development opportunities. This is a true community center. and all of it taking place in this world-class facility. I mean, I couldn't be more proud than to get to work out of this beautiful beacon on the hill that's really announcing to everybody who drives by, that Baton Rouge takes early childhood seriously. Baton Rouge is investing in its future, that this is a great place to stay and work and raise a family. And it's all done in partnership, this massive collaboration that started with our founders and is growing out to soon it's going to be open to everybody. And lastly, I just want to recognize that I am extremely overjoyed with the staff that we've been able to pull together in such a short amount of time. We are truly collecting the best and the brightest. And just imagine the type of person who wants to work in a startup where you don't know what's coming week to week and you got serious deadlines. It's some creative, interesting, talented folks. And I'm just thrilled to be in this with you.